Okay, we are live. Okay, so we are live. Obviously, Champions League's back, and obviously Europa League will be back this week. And Mourinho's come out after their defeat to Juventus and has basically again aimed comments about the club's transfer policy. He's basically said that there is a golfing class between the top clubs in Europe and Manchester United, and he's had a dig at Manchester United's transfer policy yet again in a press conference. United's transfer policy yet again in a press conference. To be fair, they only lost 1-0. It's a group stage game. Group stages don't mean a hell of a lot if you qualify out of them, really. They're not the best guiding form. We've seen clubs in the group stages that have dominated their group not really show up for the dead rubber at the end, and not put the effort in. But it's basically Mourinho has come out and then has said his piece. And yeah, he's critical of Manchester United's transfer policy. Now, how long this can continue, I don't know, but the media is obviously overblowing and blowing it out of proportion. However, we saw with Conte last year at Chelsea, critical of club transfer policy, very quickly out of a job. So we have to see what's going to happen there long term. But it is interesting. It's interesting thinking about how long has he got left. It's not the most positive environment. That's all I'm saying. It's not the most positive environment at the club at the moment. But I think the media there is a witch hunt against Mourinho, but Mourinho and the media have always had this heated relationship, I suppose, and it hasn't always been smooth sailing. So we'll have to see long term what is in hold for Mourinho and United. But Manchester United, under the Glazer family and before, the previous owners have shown a lot of patience with coaches and managers and players, and not wanting to rush into changing a manager, making hasty signings because they feel pressured to. They are a club with stability. But how long they can continue with Mourinho in charge is a question. But yeah, open hostility between Mourinho and club transfer policy. Talking of the Premier League, Newcastle's still without a win, and that was raised on the last live stream, how long Mike Ashley will be owner of that club, and he's an owner that regularly gets criticised by the fans. Other managers who have worked for him have been very critical of his transfer dealings as well, and his running of that club, so that is an interesting one. If we were to look at every club in the Premier League right now, which one of the managers gets sacked first, that's an interesting one, I'm surprised the Premier League hasn't had any sackings at this point. Bear in mind, this time last season we'd already had a few, and we had a tumultuous time at Everton. Everton were a big story last year with how they helped replace Ronald Koeman, David Unsworth, and then Big Sam. They're on their fourth manager in a calendar year, so they're now with Marco Silva. So Everton is an interesting case of a club that doesn't have much managerial stability since David Moyes left the role. So that's interesting, having a look at that. But it's always interesting, debating and hypothesis, putting forward a hypothesis on would this guy go, would that guy go. But what the media are doing is clickbait. What the media are doing with Jose Mourinho, with what happened last year at Everton, will Unsworth stay, go, was all clickbait. There was no real concrete journalistic evidence where they've actually gone and asked the questions. They were just writing articles presuming what could happen. It's the same with William Nylander in the NHL with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He hasn't signed a contract yet, and the media, especially over in Canada, are blowing it up and really raising it out of proportion. Players hold out for contracts a lot, and teams will hold out on signing those contracts. It happens a lot. It happens a lot more than we realise. This is quite a common thing. The fact that Toronto are playing very, very well at the moment, admittedly the last few games, okay, they've had a little wobble. They're not going to win every game, but because the rest of the offensive pieces at Toronto play really, really well, and Tavares is settling in, and Matthews has had an explosive start, the questions are raised, is William Nylander going to stay or is he going to go? Now, they are going to be very, very close the salary cap with John Tavares now joining and other players like Austin Matthews, they're going to want to get paid. The issue with Toronto is they haven't got past the first round of the playoffs since they've been back in the playoffs. They haven't had a lot of success post-season for a long time. They are looking good regular season. Stanley Cup playoffs, different kettle of fish. But the William Nylander thing, there is no news there because nothing's happening. It's a player and the general manager. Basically, they're not quite on the same page for what they think he should be paid. And could it backfire on them? Yes. But at the moment, it's not really a story. It's a story that's been overblown by the Canadian media out of Toronto massively. And it is very frustrating if you are an NHL fan and you want to find out information about your team or any articles on your team, and they're constantly going with this narrative. It is annoying. It does happen. Yes, I do like the Canberra Raiders in the NRL when I do get the chance to catch an NRL game, which has been very, very difficult this year with the TV rights and online being very, very difficult because of copyright violations and stuff like that. It's harder this year than in previous years to catch any NRL games. Of course, the Raiders haven't won a grand final again, but we can get to it. But yes, I'm a Raiders fan, but it's been a long time since the Raiders actually had any success since they last won the grand final. It's been a long, long time, and I think they're due some. They have some very, very talented players, but they're, again, the NRL salary cap, and we can discuss salary caps and what issues that poses for clubs and leagues in retaining players and signing players, and a variety of things. Well, if you look at the players you've listed there who played well at Old Trafford last night, they're all international quality. They're all international quality. They've all played at the highest level for a long time. They're experienced. It wasn't just the Ronaldo show last night, which it threatened to be. And there's the issues with Ronaldo. Should he be playing? Because there are the allegations against him. Should he not be playing? And that's a whole other kettle of fish, which the sport of football needs to look itself in the face and go, we do have an issue with these allegations against players quite regularly. So there's got to be a culture issue there, and an issue within dressing rooms of what is acceptable behaviour. And the allegations are old, and they're not new news. They were out and about. I remember them briefly being in the news, and then very quickly after that, he moved from Old Trafford to the Bernabeu, and they sort of disappeared very quickly, and then they've come back out a decade later. So I am surprised with the fact that they were raised before and they've suddenly reappeared. But Der Spiegel, the German magazine, I'm very surprised Der Spiegel are the publication really driving this, considering that Franck Ribéry at Bayern Munich had his own sex allegations against him, already following up on. But yeah, the Ronaldo risked derailing the game, but Mourinho's comments post-game, I think, is again Mourinho basically wanting to be the victim all the time. He's now, as I say, he's gone after transfer policy at the club. But he was also instrumental in signing some of those players that had failed at Man United, like Sanchez. Pogba's been hit and miss, and Pogba's won a World Cup, but when he was playing with France, he played a lot happier. He looked a lot better in what he was doing for the French side. So take a hint. Look what's working for him. Well, over here in the UK, NRL coverage is limited to subscription TV for the most part, and the NRL app would be. It doesn't work as well. It's the same with any overseas app that's mainly aimed at an overseas market. They don't work as well. I don't have enough memory on my phone anyway, but it is annoying that the NRL is harming itself by not allowing more overseas TV rights sales. That's why the Premier League in this country has become so big and so wealthy, is because it worked out there was an overseas market to sell TV rights to. The NRL could look at possibly selling more rights overseas. It may help that league get more revenue streams, which then may alleviate the issues on the salary cap, because we've seen again more teams falling foul of the salary cap rules that the NRL have put in place. And the reason why the salary cap in the NRL is flawed because it works off a draft system, and they took it to court, and they got rid of the draft, and that's why they have reserve grade, second grade, lower level rugby league. So it's a flawed system because it's a salary cap intended for a draft system like the NHL and NFL, and it doesn't have a draft system, it just has a development system. So there's issues with the salary cap in the NRL. But if the NRL was to sell TV rights overseas, it means a revenue stream. It means possibly also growing the game a lot more overseas as well. The US, we've seen they're interested in rugby league players and rugby union players and getting them playing American football. There is an interest in both kinds of rugby in the US. In prime market, they could try more to sell the product. Same Super League, they need to look at the TV deal and trying to get more free to air, because the NRL has a lot more free to air games than Super League. In fact, the Super League has none. Only the Challenge Cup is free to air, and even then it's selected games. The NRL is making sure a game, each round of the fixture list is on free to air minimum. There's that debate. So Super League needs to look at itself and see what the NRL is doing and see, right, if what's working, what's not working for us. The TV deal the Super League currently has, not working. Right, let's have a quick look at what other questions we've just had. Live chat, let's have a look. Do into any cup competition, and I know it's a group stage, but yes, Messi's out injured. I think any one-off game, because even if it's a group stage, still you only play this team twice in Europe this season. It's a one-off occasion. It doesn't matter if they win or lose. I think the pressure will be off. I think they'll play more free-flowing. But bearing in mind, AC Milan aren't the team they were a decade ago. So again, I'll take that win at the Milan derby with a pinch of salt at the San Siro. But yeah, they have a chance. Look, Celtic have beaten Barcelona in the past. So yes, this isn't the Barcelona team of a decade ago. This isn't the Barcelona team of Pep Guardiola with the antiseptic tiki-taki. The Spanish football itself has got issues, so we'll see what happens. We will see what happens on that. Blake Austin coming to the UK will be interesting because he's actually one of the better players to come out of the NRL to come over to the UK in recent years, and this is the issue. The better Super League players do go over to Australia. We had a big rush of English players hitting the Super League, and other British registered players who could play for any of the home nations go over to the Super League from the Super League to the NRL. A few years back, a big batch of them, James Graham and Sam Burgess, Burgess twins. I think there are still some players in the Super League who I think would be really suited to playing in the NRL. Jermaine McGilvery's one. There are a handful of others that I really do think could make a good fist of it in the NRL. On saying that, again, I do think there is a talent gap. We've discussed this before. I do think there is a talent gap there, but that's again something that Super League needs to look at. Why is the Australian national side so much better than the British or English national side? If you want to have a Great Britain team, which we haven't had for about 12 years, they need to look at why. And these autumn internationals, these end of season internationals, are the prime time to really assess where the development of Super League players is compared to development of NRL players. It's a no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer to want to question, okay, are we developing the quality of player to compete at international level against the best in the world? Obviously, in Australia, they have the State of Origin series, and it's becoming more competitive now with New South Wales winning a couple on the bounce and really mixing it up in the last couple of seasons. In fact, the New South Wales Queensland is about 50-50 since 2014, so that's a good sign that both Queensland and New South Wales are now both in the running to win State of Origin rather than just Queensland all the time. Australia themselves, obviously Billy Slater is now retired. Cherry Evans has got back in the side. Cameron Smith's stepped aside now. Greg Inglis is obviously standing down because of his drink drive conviction. So the Australian national side ain't necessarily the best team they put out in the last 15 years. They are vulnerable. But I do think, watching the World Cup this time last year, the gap between the Super League based players and the NRL based players was there for all to see. They did the World Club Challenge games at the beginning of this season. Again, the gap was there for all to see, considering the Super League season starts earlier than the NRL season. The Super League teams were hammered in those games, considering they had played competitive games for a couple of weeks. They'd actually acclimatised, played competitive matches in the league. Over in Australia, they were hammered. So there is a talent gap. The entertainment level is there, that I have no doubt, but the actual quality level and the physicality, I think NRL is ahead. But that's my personal opinion. Anyone else, you can argue you think Super League's more entertaining or more up in the air. NRL's more entertaining. It's all subjective, but for me, I think the NRL is the superior league and are further ahead. Do I think Rangers can go far in the Europa League? Yes. Again, cup competition. It's a lottery. It's not the same as a league campaign. I think with cup competition, no matter if what sport you're playing, it's a completely different kettle of fish to a regular season. So it depends if you have your separate cup competitions where all leagues are involved, or if you have a post-season playoff structure like the NHL. The form goes out the window, and it's down to cup form and league form can be different. They can be related. That's why I'm saying teams like Crystal Palace have a good shot in the FA Cup. I think they will take it seriously. I think they'll use cup competitions to improve their on-field form in the league as well. A bit of momentum. They can be momentum boosters. They can help, or they can be a drain. We've seen that with teams in the Champions League put a lot of effort in that, or having a hangover when they come to the league game the weekend and they struggle. So that'll be an interesting dynamic. There's a lot of other things going on at the moment. I mean, we've obviously the UEFA Nations League has had its first couple of rounds now. Not every fan is sold in it. The fact that the TV rights to these internationals have been taken away from terrestrial TV and again put on Sky is another. Oh God, this guy's back again. And we have this every live stream. This guy, is just changes his name and has multiple accounts. It's a pain in the arse. So yeah, if I'm doing something, I'm not. I'm in my house by myself. Yeah. But yeah, no, I do. I mean, I've been between contracts at the moment. I've got a shoulder issue, so I can't work either. I have a bit more time to look at some sports stuff. Over the summer, I really followed the Football World Cup pretty religiously. I only missed, I think, 5 games this summer in the World Cup in the football. And I was surprised by the fact that the team with the fewer shots and less possession generally won the game. And it's a trend I'm seeing in a lot of possession-based sports, where the team with less possession or less chances to score ends up winning somehow. I'm seeing it in the NHL, I'm seeing it in rugby union, I'm seeing it in rugby league, I've been seeing it in football. Your English team, I'm probably going to go for Everton. Somehow, I'm going as an Everton fan. Just as a of the dark. But I wouldn't know. I mean, you're clearly a Rangers fan through and through, and if you do have a secondary team that you follow, fair play to you. But I wouldn't have a clue. But the research talking about a sport that is in flux, and this is football. They've got this UEFA Nations League, the World Club, World Club Challenge, which FIFA have set up. There's going to be alterations to the format on that. The World Cup, we had the VAR experiment, and I felt for the most part it did actually work rather well. I am really surprised that the Premier League voted against having it this season until later on. So there are, but you got to look at, and then you said Spain are a prime example, and the Spanish La Liga wanting to take games to the US in regular season and play them there has met with fierce reaction from fans, players, managers, and the media and experts. And, you know, there's all well and good chasing the new casual fan, but at the same time, if you lose your mainstream fan base or against you risk harming the product at home, which is, well, you want to really pack out stadiums, because I will say this, empty stadiums look really crap on live TV. Yes, there is a connection between Rangers fans and Chelsea fans. There is a connection there. Ah, right. Okay. Another guy getting removed. God, this guy just keeps creating channels and just keeps doing this. It's a pain in the arse. La Liga, I like that. La Liga has issues. Because the league has basically, obviously had a conversation with the Spanish Federation, and they decided earlier on to have a TV agreement to try and sell TV rights, and I think that was the initial plan. In those conversations with the TV rights company in the US, they've agreed to play games over there. I think the way the federation have gauged reaction and have realised this is a bad idea. When the players were not on board and the players' union threatened to strike, you know, it doesn't look good. John Bateman, yes, in the World Cup last year, I know he's in primarily a second row, but they did play him in the centres, and I felt if there was an out-and-out centre on the bench, I don't know why Wayne Bennett did that, but he could tell he's a utility player. He has got a good skill set. I do think, yeah, he has an opportunity to give the NRL a shot. I am surprised though that it depends, you know, what position they play him. If they play him in the second row, does he have the physicality? And if they do play him in the centres or on the wing, does he have the pace and the full winger centre skill set? I can see him being used as an interchange player, as a utility player. Whether that will mean he'll get less or more game time than an out-and-out centre or an out-and-out second row interchange forward, I don't know. But he definitely is a willing player. He's not the most skilled player in the world, but he's got the effort in there. He has the work ethic. He has the work rate, which is vital. So we'll have to see how he does. I am surprised that Jermaine McGilvray has decided to stay at Huddersfield rather than take up the NRL. They were last season. You know, when the World Cup was on, a lot of the Australians were picking him out as a star player. A lot of the Australian media were picking him out as a possible NRL. An NRL club, you know, would be scouting him. He's not the tallest winger, but he's exceptionally powerful and exceptionally quick. And again, work rate, ethic. You can't deny that. And he has got a good rugby league brain and good positioning in defence. And no, I don't have FIFA. I don't play the EA Sports games anymore. I'm not really into that kind of gaming anymore. Most of my gaming lately has been Assassin's Creed. I am getting the new Red Dead Redemption 2, and I will be doing a review of that when I get it Friday, Saturday on the other channel. NHL, no, I used to play it. I find the modern gameplay now not as fun. I still have NHL 2005 on PS2, and I still occasionally get that out, but I'm not sold on the current NHL EA Sports games or 2K games either, for that matter. I've not been sold on them for a while. I just find that EA Sports, I think there's only so far you can go with gameplay on a sports game, really. There is a limit on how far you can go, and most of it's geared for online gaming, and it's not my thing. Dundee Stars, yes. Now, talk about the Elite League Ice Hockey. Milton Keynes Lightning are having problems icing a team. They haven't got that many players. They've only got, I think, 12 skaters, 13 skaters, and 2 goaltenders. They are in a bit of a real struggle at the moment to get players signed, which is a concern. Considering that they did actually apply to join the Elite League, and then they were approached, they had discussions, and same with Guildford. Yeah, they could be the new Edinburgh Capitals. Hopefully this TV deal mitigates some of the issues that teams are having, but Planet Ice have put all their eggs in one basket there, and I don't know if that's going to work. I will be at the Bracknell Bees Bison game this weekend. I might wear my Jaromir Jagr Washington Capitals shirt. Haven't worn it in a while. It depends on the weather though. If it's really cold and wet, I just will be grumpy and yeah. But I'll be approachable, so if you are at the Bracknell Bees game this weekend, feel free just to go hi and we can, while the Zamboni's going around, we can talk hockey. Loads of Bays and Stoke fans come down regularly to Bracknell games now, and you can tell the writings on the wall with the Bison going forward. With the rink issue, I can go in the cafe and buy a bite to eat, but I'll be around. I'll be, accessible. So if you want to just say hi and have a chat, I mean, I'm more than happy to, discuss all things hockey, all things rugby, all things football, any sport you want, really. As far as my knowledge will allow me to do so. But at the end of the day, feel free to ask any questions you want. What I find really surprising. Yes, you can have a beer, but you have to stay upstairs at the Bracknell rink because the way the rink's laid out, they don't have a licence for the cafe downstairs. So if you buy alcohol, you have to stay upstairs, which is one of the inane rules that they have there. But it is what it is. I would like. There are some cities on my things to do list. I want to go to Winnipeg to see the Jets play. I want to go to Toronto and just to go around the Hockey Hall of Fame, amongst other things, and the Big Talk Tower. I do want to see the Canberra Raiders play, but that does involve travelling halfway across the bloody world. And what I find really interesting is when the Canberra Raiders first was set up, they didn't play Canberra for a while until later on. Their stadium does need a bit of a revamp, I will admit that, but it's also used for rugby union internationals as well, and rugby union and Super Rugby, so that pitch does take a beating in season. It's one of the coldest places to play in the NRL. Obviously, when the NRL takes place in the middle of the Australian winter, it does get cold in Canberra. I've been told. So you expect, you go to Australia, you expect it to be warm, and you go up into the capital territory and you freeze your tits off in the Canberra Radio Stadium. The GO Stadium. Yeah, it is a place I want to go. I think it's an iconic stadium. With the green and Larkham stands and stuff, it is iconic. The fact they didn't actually play in Canberra until later on, when they were called the Canberra Raiders and didn't actually play in Canberra for silly reasons, and I'll look into that, which is kind of interesting that they named the Canberra Raiders and don't actually play in Canberra until recently. But yeah, this guy is really pissing me off now. I do try and, if I'm going to talk about a subject, know as much as possible about what I'm talking about. To have an opinion, you need to have some kind of fact to back up your argument. And where I feel the NRL are going wrong is their TV rights, the TV deal they've got in place, and the salary cap needs seriously modifying. And they need to expand into Perth and Adelaide, or Perth and the South Island of New Zealand, to really improve the player base, grow the fan base, and I think to really be taken seriously as the NRL, because the AFL are well ahead of them in the Australian market at least. It's either that they relocate one or two teams from Sydney, and whether those fans will be happy that their team are going to... It was the guy from Monday Night as well. It's a regular thing, getting it a lot lately. So I don't do live streams as much because idiots like this. Probably some school or college kiddies on half term, got nothing better to do, because they can't even piss and spell half the time. It happens. But hey, it's helping my view count, so when it does come to the monetisation review policy, if we get that far, hey, he's helping with the view minutes and the view hours and the sudden interest on trending, so let them be idiots, and I'll just keep blocking them, or you guys keep blocking them. It's the only way that, but what he fails to realise is he's actually doing me a favour, so by trolling he's doing me a favour, so I'm getting more view hours. I just find it funny that they persist. We had one that persisted for an hour and a half, 2 hours once, and I just find it funny that they persist, and I'll give them credit, they are persistent. They're sad, but persistent, and their MO hasn't changed. Any good movie or TV series recommendations? Okay, well, I've got a few box sets, and ironically, before I was on live stream today, I was watching this, Chicago first 4 series. Series 5 I will be buying soon. Yes, I've watched all the episodes, but I'm happy to rewatch them. You know, in between, you know, various bits and pieces. Got into that 2014 when it first came out on British TV. I was doing a contract job in Birmingham, and season 1 was on Channel 5 USA or whatever it was, and I was in the hotel and just accidentally clicked onto it and got hooked midway through season 1. So I just got hooked after that. There are some spin-off series as well, which I'm not so keen on, and there's some crossover episodes with Law and Order. What else would I recommend right now? There are some good things out there. Obviously you've got The Flash, but I'm not a big fan of the Marvel kind of TV series and films. I know there are those that are. It's not my cup of tea. I've got no name on the back of these jerseys because it costs more to have them personalised, so I've got nothing on the back of any of mine. I prefer having... Yes, I've got a Jaromir Jagr signed jersey, but he's my favourite player. But for the most part, when I have sports jerseys, I don't have players' names or numbers on the back. It's just my thing. I just don't mind them without. I've got a fair few. I'll have to do my jersey collection again because it's changed. It's got to be updated. I have given some of my jerseys away in the past, so to other YouTubers who deal in sports. So, but I've got a fair few. Yeah, Walking Dead. I've never really got into that, and I understand what people did, and I understand that, you know, Walking Dead, you know, they killed off a lot of people. They have to because it's the Walking Dead. There is a point where a TV series cannot overstay its welcome. So like The Big Bang Theory has been cancelled now, and the next series that's on TV over here in the UK is The Last. You know, there was a point where I felt The Big Bang Theory stopped getting funny about 5 years ago, and the producers of that and the writers of that kept it going a bit too long. Much like Friends, much like several sitcoms. Oh shit, that's my headphones and the Xbox falling off. But again, TV series, I mean, there are some good documentaries out there, there's some good films. Obviously the Bohemian Rhapsody film about Queen, the reviews are mixed on it. So we shall see. Yes, Narcos, I've watched bits and pieces of that in passing. I've watched snippets. Obviously it's all based on true fact. So that's what the kind of TV series that I like, those docudramas where it is based on true fact and they dramatised it. I do like them. I have... what have I got from my Xbox? I've just got a Turtle Beach. Standard Turtle Beach. Nothing special, it's just a Turtle Beach. Nothing special, it's my second one I've had. It's the newer version of Turtle Beach. The one I had before wasn't exactly the same. And where it joins into the Xbox controller, that pin snapped and bent, so I had to replace it, which is a bit annoying as I only had it a couple of months, but that's a more up-to-date Turtle Beach headset. The store I bought the previous Turtle Beach headset from is going to have business, so yeah, I went in to buy an SD card from a shop. I wanted to get my laptop fixed as well, and I dropped my wallet in the shop. I went back into the shop later on. A couple of days later, when I realised my wallet had gone missing, and they claimed that I took it out of my rucksack when I took it out of my pocket, so I knew something was up. I had to cancel all my cards. I had to order a new driving licence, a new bank card. There's a few other cards that I've got to get hold of, store cards that I've got to get hold of the stores, and cancel any of my points, reward points, and get a new card sent out. It was a pain in the arse, and the police station was shut because it was a Saturday. I didn't report a stolen wallet. If it was lost and found and handed in, I wouldn't know, because the police station are useless, because that's British policing. Have a town of 100,000 people with no open police station. But yeah, my wallet did do a wander. Hasn't turned up, but we've got all the cards that I need now replaced. I've got 2 new wallets, so I've got a couple of spares. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's not the end of the world. It was a mild inconvenience. I wasn't having a good week. There's other things going on with my shoulder. I've got a nerve issue in my neck, and I've got a muscular problem, and I've probably a joint issue as well. So there's a few things going on with my left shoulder. We have nerve damage as part of the problem. It's an old injury, partly sporting, partly motor vehicle related, so that's pissing me off as well. And I've had this cold, so all in all, life has been a bit crap. Hopefully Friday laptop will be sent off for repair because I'm buying Red Dead Redemption 2, so I have to be in town and I have to do some shopping. And hopefully the laptop will be resolved soon, because yes, I'm loving the picture quality on my phone, but my phone isn't great. There are memory issues on my phone. It's got limited memory, and live streams are good. Other videos I've got to use my iPad, but the sound quality can get a bit iffy on my iPad. And if Bison make it worse, I will cry. But at the same time, it's basically Bracknell B team are playing for the Bison now, so it's going to be an interesting game on Sunday. Of that, I have no doubt. I can see discipline being vital in that game. I can see player discipline, team discipline, not taking silly penalties being absolutely vital, and I can see, I would say not conservative defending, but keeping the defending simple, keeping the play simple, as the way forward. The fact that both sets of players know each other very, very well, know each other's games very, very well, it's going to be an interesting game. And one mistake could throw the game off the air. But talking about refereeing standards, if we have Matthews, it won't be a good game. Not after last weekend with Peterborough. That was a poor refereeing performance if ever I've seen one. And not the worst refereeing performance, I will say that, but it was a poor one. And Evans hasn't been as bad as Matthews, although Evans can be poor. But there have been some good refs flying around from the Elite League who've covered games, and we shall see what happens going forward. The game itself, I can see it, if it's not refereed properly, getting out of hand. I can see the gloves flying and punches flying and players overstepping the mark, which sometimes makes it interesting. But we have to see, what kind of mood the game starts off at. If it's starting off already fractious in the early minutes, if there's already a few borderline plays, you can see it going one way. If the referees get on top of it very, very quickly and assertively, we can avoid a lot of penalty minutes. It depends how the game is reffed early on and how the mood of the game as well. Common sense should take over, but again, this is lower level in the sport, and sometimes common sense is lacking. But we'll have to see what happens at the weekend. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. The rivalry is, been around for a long time. Basingstoke have always had a decent team. It's the off-ice issues that have held them back, and now their ice rink is falling apart. But the off-ice issues at times with money issues in the past, and being up in the Elite League once and then having to come back down because of money issues, that's had an effect on the team. So we'll have to see what happens, and I think this season between the two teams, the games are going to be they're going to be interesting. They're going to be interesting. Talking about, I haven't, obviously, because I haven't seen that much of the NRL this season, I can't comment on the refereeing standard. However, every time I look online on other YouTube channels that do cover the NRL, when I look on Twitter, when I look at anything NRL related, when I do get a chance, refereeing standards are getting highlighted. And I do have some respect for the officials. You have to. I do respect the job the officials do, because without them we don't have a game. But they brought in some rule variations on the play the ball, on the tackle area, which they were experimenting in the pre-season. And then obviously the World Cup Challenge games were played, and of course they played Super League interpretation of the play the ball and the tackle area. This is the thing with rugby league, whereas rugby union has a unified set of rules in the laws when it comes to high tackle, when it comes to scrum, when it comes to offsides, you name it. Rugby league, you have the NRL interpretation, you have the Super League interpretation, and then you have the international rules. In international rules, you can still fight. You can still throw punches and only get a 10-minute sin bin. In Super League and in NRL, you get citations, bans, etc., fines. But international rules, you can fight. This is the issue that the rugby league as a sport has. Is there so many rule variations? So we'll see. Uh, I do think that, yes. I think with the constant changes on rules and the variations they put in, you need to allow time for that new rule to establish itself, be it a couple of seasons before you go and target the next rule change. Um, there are a lot of issues, and it's the same in Super League, it's the same in International Rugby League. The penalty count, some of the penalties, I'm really boggled about what's a penalty now in the tackle area and the play of the ball. They blow up. Is it a strip? Is it a drop? Um, so we'll see. On the meeting of Planet Ice and the Bison fans, clearly they need to find a long term solution. If this is the last season, and I'm assuming it could be, unless Basingstoke want to merge with Slough, which is a possibility, I don't think they can merge with Bracknell because the Windsor Knights use our ice space as well. We have the Hornets. Swindon don't have the capacity. There's only one other option, and that is to go to Gosport, where the Solent Devils play. Planet Ice Rink. The issues with the ice rink have been there for a long time, but I'll be interested to see what actually comes out of that meeting. So if you are down the rink Sunday and you are watching the game, please feel free to talk to me because it will give it'll be interesting to see what you have to say as a fan. Yeah, the crowd difference between Super League and NRL. There are a lot of teams in the Sydney area, and that is part of the problem of the NRL. But the Super League has issues with away fans getting the games, and the TV rights that are an issue. And see you later. The NRL and the Super League have two different issues. The Super League has changed its promotion relegation format, which the NRL doesn't have. The NRL has issues with the salary cap constantly being breached, but both leagues have an issue with drink and drug misuse with players. So there are some shared issues and there's some different issues. Rugby league as a sport needs to really reform itself. Otherwise, we risk having another Super League war, for example, in Australia, or we risk more negative headlines for the sport when it concerns players drink driving, taking drugs, steroids. So players like Zach Hardacre would become more common. More of those cases would happen because there is an issue with, there is a lot going on where both the NRL and Super League need to come together and have meetings in the off season. They need to both come together. The heads of those leagues need to come together and discuss the issues involving representatives of all the clubs involved. In the Super League structure, that includes the Championship and the League One structure, and the NRL and the reserve grade structures. They need to have representatives from those leagues. They need to sit down and they need to come together and work out a solution for the sport with the issues that it faces. Leeds are doing it. I mean, Leeds is a city that Headingley has a joint cricket, rugby league, rugby union ground, basically, and they're doing a lot of building work at about what they want. Leeds is a sports-mad city. The issue with Leeds is threefold, really. They want to have an ice hockey team. You've got a football club that are well established. You've got a rugby league club, one of the biggest in the country, and you've got a rugby union club in Yorkshire, Carnegie, that want to get back into the Premiership. That are established club as well, that have a very passionate fan base. You've got three really, really, big established sides. In the city. Also, does it have a fan base for the sport? Are there any how many NHL fans live in Leeds? Obviously, Sheffield have got a hockey mad city. Newcastle have tried and failed. Hull have had teams in the past and have the Hull Pirates now. And And at the end, oh god, and at the so is Leeds? I mean, yes, they might want an ice rink and an ice hockey team there, but you know, are the fans going to turn up? Are people in Leeds going to buy in, considering that they already have three big um, sports teams already in the city? That's what I'm getting at. That's going to be interesting. I think. Oh no, I can't stand any team from Melbourne, and I don't like the Roosters. I'm not a snob. I think I don't know why. There was something about the Raiders. You know, when they last won in '94, I was a kid, and that's when I was getting into sport. So the early mid '90s were when my choices of teams as a kid. I just decided to follow them. Ironically, most of the teams that I follow play in blue and white, so I have a green team. I don't know, but this is when I had cable TV, so I had loads of sports channels. This is at the time of the Super League wars as well, so rugby league and the battles between Murdoch and the rest of the sporting world, because obviously owned Sky Sports over here, we did, were really fresh in people's mind, and they were in the public consciousness. The Premier League was Sky Sports and everything like that, football. And that's when my formative years of choosing the teams that I follow came about, really. Um, there's no particular reason. I've got friends and family out in Australia. There's no real particular reason. I just went, fine, we'll go for the Canberra Raiders. Uh, they had a good team at the time as well, which helped. But in the meantime, since then, they've had some pretty woeful teams, and they've had some good teams, and now they're sort of somewhere in the middle. The fact that players like Blake Austin are going to be leaving is, I think, a problem for Ricky Stewart. I do. I think they had a good thing going there, and I think the handling of the salary cap by the NRL has been poor at the end of this time last year, and they said, here's what the cap's going to be. Several teams, including Canberra, decided to sign that cap, and then suddenly out of nowhere, oh no, the cap's going to be lower, so that did cause some problems as well. But I'm not a fan of the Roosters. I'm not a fan of Melbourne Storm. The Melbourne Storm have basically fiddled the cap since they joined the league. How the hell they've kept, Cronk, Smith and Slater for so long. I know Cronk's now moved on to fresh pastures, but Smith and Slater, how they kept them for so long on big money, I have no idea. But we do have an idea. It's called cheating the salary cap, but that's why the salary cap has issues, and Murdoch's involvement with the Melbourne Storm as well. Really, yeah. But we wouldn't have the NRL without the Melbourne Storm, because they were part and parcel of the reason why the NRL was formed at the end of the Super League wars. They were a byproduct because Rupert Murdoch's from Melbourne, so they are important in the history of the NRL. I'm not a Storm fan. Sydney Roosters and South Sydney Rabbitohs, that's a heated rivalry. Not a fan of either. Yes, English players have played for both teams, and yes, both teams have had some really talented players play for them over the years. Really talented players. But not my cup of tea, really. You got to go with what you got to support, really. And for me, the Raiders is the team that I like in the NRL. Hopefully, they can be successful again and win the grand final and get their hands either on the minor premiership or the grand final in the years to come. Obviously, with players leaving that are key players, that's going to be interesting going forward. What Ricky Stewart and his coaching setup do. But again, that's what player development's about, and scouting as well. I mean, it's going to be interesting, but hopefully, hopefully we can obviously get more coverage over here in the UK. That would be nice. With Comcast now buying Sky over here in the UK, we might see some changes on some of the TV rights and of sports and the structure of Sky Sports. We might see some changes there. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But it would be nice to have more coverage of the NRL over here. But well, that's what we can wish for. On the same token, though, as I say, the NRL does have problems. I think every sport has issues that it needs to resolve. Do I think Streatham will do? Yeah, Streatham have beaten, I think, Peterborough, Bracknell and Swindon now. They are looking good. They're a good, solid, tight unit. I've seen them play last year in Streatham. I went to a game in Streatham. Um, they for the level they're playing, they do have a chance. They're hard. They are, I think, the best of the National League teams from before the EPL folded. I think they were the best of the bunch that were down in that level. They've recruited well. They develop players well. They have a good team bond, which helps. But we'll have to see what happens. I mean, we're only in October, so the season's still reasonably young. We haven't gone through the busy Christmas period yet, when the weather gets really bad and illness takes over and injuries, suspensions. So we have to see what happens going forward. The season's nearly a quarter of the way done, but there is time for things to change, injuries to sit in. League Two football, yes, League Two football is not as obviously high quality as the Premier League, obviously, but I think the fans are just as passionate. I think the players obviously want to aim for that next level, because they are fully professional. They want to get to League One, Championship, and so on. There are some clubs in there like Oldham that have played in the Premier League, so I think League One and League Two do get overlooked by the media. They do get overlooked by, especially by the experts. There's some good development of young players there. There's some players in there that can play in the Championship and the Premier League. There are those young developing players, but they are reliant on the loan system, and that is another system in English football that needs to be reformed. But it'll be interesting to see, with the FA Cup first round and second round, how the League One and League Two clubs do. Some of them will be getting TV time and televised games, which will be nice. A bit more exposure. It'd be nice to see what League One and League Two clubs can have a good long, lengthy run in the FA Cup this year, and you see how many of them get through to the third, fourth, fifth rounds, if they do get that far, because that can be crucial to a club's finances. Which is another thing again needs reform is again the club finances and how clubs are run at lower level and how TV money is distributed. The NRL does get coverage over here, just not enough. There is coverage here. It is limited. They used to show it on Premier Sports. I'm not sure if they do now. Therefore, the Dally M medal doesn't get enough coverage. You have to search for it. I do think if you want to sell a league, you've got to sell it to your domestic market first and foremost. But once you've done that and you actually got a domestic market fan base, the NRL has that. It's the second most popular league in Australia after the AFL. You want to look abroad to try and sell your product to get a revenue stream, and they do have a lot of Australians living over here. There's a lot of Aussies playing rugby league and rugby union over here and cricket. As professional sportsmen, there is clearly an expat market. I'm surprised they haven't tried harder to get a rights deal, considering that Murdoch had a stake in Sky until recently. Really surprised they haven't tried to get some free-to-air coverage, subscription TV. Regardless, I'm really surprised they haven't tried it more. But it just shows the level of what the media think rugby league is in this country, in the UK. They don't see it as a bigger draw as rugby union and football, and now professional ice hockey has now got a new TV deal. So Super League needs to look at its TV deal itself and how it sells its product and how it markets itself. So it's all up in the air. But again, TV deals are regularly on the table now when it comes to discussions about sports reforming themselves and trying to get the connection between the fans and the revenues right. And I think Premier League's gone wrong there. Super League has gone wrong. I think they've over commercialised it. They've let the hardcore fans down. They've let those fans that may not really want to go to every game, but may want to go every now and then down. And then the passing fan, the casual fans are not really getting the opportunity to see a game on the TV or at the stadium because it's not advertised enough. Super League has been screwed by Sky Sports. They really have. Um, no, we don't. We don't. Well, we do have state of. Yeah, well, it's on subscription TV, but again, it's not really advertised. It's not really sold. For some reason, the British sports TV market is chasing after the NFL, chasing after the NBA, chasing after the NHL to a point. Um, Major League Baseball. They're chasing after those things. They're not chasing after Australian stuff. And State of Origin is, I think, probably the ultimate hardcore sporting event. 3 matches of just annihilation. Admittedly, it's not as hard as it used to be. Because again, they've taken the fighting out of it a little bit. But State of Origin, I used to love watching it. I used to try and catch that on the internet if I could. It is on TV, but you got to pay for it. It's not the best advertised, and Sky Sports has changed its structure now for what it's got. Um, and Rugby League again doesn't come up highly on Sky Sports list of sports that it thinks it could sell. Um, Oldham, I think Oldham. The issue with Oldham is the location they are in. There's a lot of professional football clubs and professional sports teams in general around the Greater Manchester area, and it's got obviously Man United, Man City, Bolton. There Bury. That's just a handful of football clubs I can name. There's a whole host of other sports teams in rugby league, rugby union, ice hockey, all in that kind of northwest region of the country. So you're trying to scramble for fans, and fans are your revenue stream. There are some money issues with Oldham, so we shall see what happens with Oldham. I think if the right ownership come in and restructure the club off the field, there is a chance. I think there's a lot of work needs to be doing at Oldham, and like this gets asked a lot about. Talk about the issue at this football club, that football club. This football club. I got asked the other night, would I be happy if Blackburn got promoted to the Premier League for next season? And I'll be like, well, yes and no. I'll be happy that they got back to the Premier League. I think they would have done it several seasons too soon, and they wouldn't survive, and it would probably be more harmful for the club than good in the long scheme of things. Lease insurance, I think yes. Whether again they have the squad to do it, they've obviously got the fan base, but do they have the quality level to stay in the Super League? Because they are changing the structure of promotion relegation back to the old way, straight up, straight down, which I think is just the simplest best. The Super 8's format was just overcomplicated and really stupid, and the £1 million game had been roundly criticised since its inception. They have got a good stadium, they've got a good fan base, they have got the right off-field dynamics in place. It's the quality on the pitch. With the Toronto Wolfpack, I think they will be most likely to make that next step. Obviously, we want London Broncos to do well as well. So it is interesting. But the Super League itself and rugby league in this country needs to look at the 3 tiers of professional rugby league and really assess, the long-term future of the game. And part of that is exploring growth in the south of England. It's a no-brainer. The majority of the population lives in the southeast. The majority of the money and the GDP, and that's now getting onto geography and economics now, again is in the southeast. And so there is a dynamic there that they are missing out. Get the London Broncos back in the Super League, I think, has probably going to have just as good as benefits as Toronto Wolfpack, if not better. And the fact that 8 players in that Broncos side are from the London area is a positive vibe that you can have rugby league in the south of the UK. I used to have timings for live streams, but since my laptop decided to take a dump and not work, and because lighting was an issue, yes, I will admit the webcam that came with my laptop, the standard webcam, was not great. So picture quality wasn't great, and that got roundly criticised. I was working with what I had. Will I be possibly getting a webcam? Yeah, I'll probably get a plug-in webcam and get some software for that. But at the same time, my phone, while the picture quality is good, the battery life isn't long. So at the moment, there is no real set in stone. As I would put it, live stream timings and days. It used to be on weekends only, but now it can be whenever it wants to be, really. Until the laptop is until I get a new laptop and get that laptop fixed, the video content's going to be less, which is annoying because that's, I think, harming the channel a little bit. But I do this as a hobby, and I've got 2 channels to run, and I'm going to be looking at doing some more videos for the other channel as well, and getting some more content up over the next day or so. There are a lot of sporting issues we need to talk about, but it is interesting, and the questions that are asked are interesting as well. It's just the history buffing, really. It's in my channel's like list. It's just the history buffing. It's just, instead of sports buffing, it's history. I don't have as many videos on there, but we are looking at getting more videos on there, and we can look at certain topics of what's on there. I do film reviews, game reviews, TV reviews, social history. We can look at specific moments, like weather events, historical events, laws being passed, things that happened on this day. We can look at a variety of things. And video ideas from you guys are also kind of what makes this whole thing tick, because some of the videos I've done have been subscriber requests, and some of them have been kind of fun to look into and research and do, and there are some interesting things. I mean, I could do a video on Las Vegas and the history of Las Vegas, because that's an interesting thing. It was it was founded by Mormons, and the reason why it's there, they found a water spring. That's why Vegas is there. Vegas wouldn't be there if they didn't have some religious minority being persecuted and some water nearby. It's in the middle of the desert. Vegas is a city that shouldn't be there. And because Vegas is one of the fastest growing cities in the Western world, most water comes from California and the Sierra Nevada range, and they're causing issues with drought and water shortages. So I think Peterborough have been one of those clubs where they yo-yo between the Championship and League One, and they're too big for League One as a club, I think, and at a quality level, but they're not quite good enough to stay in the Championship for more than a couple of seasons. So I think with Peterborough, they need to get a sense of direction. Do they want to be struggling to survive in the Championship, or do they want to be at the top end of League One? Obviously, the goal is to go further up, but are they rushing themselves every season to get back into the Championship before really rebuilding that squad, or looking at the depth they have? Clearly, going to be a Championship side as a minimum, but have they got the tools in place and the infrastructure in place to be that Championship side, stabilising the Championship, and then make a run for the Premier League? That's, I think, what the goal should be. I think they're trying to win now all the time and get back up straight away. They haven't necessarily long term got a plan in place. I think that's what's causing Peterborough problems long term, is the long term plan. But the issue with the lower leagues is the lack of money. Plain and simple, the lack of finances at the lower levels of the game are having an effect, and that's to do with the TV rights, and that's to do with agents' fees, and the best players being pinched for cheap by bigger clubs who then make a profit on them. The fact that a lot of the League 1 and League 2 clubs only can field a squad because of the loan system. And again, Peterborough, they're in League 1 now. A lot of their players will be Championship players on loan, or Premier League players on loan. They get promoted to the Championship. and the clubs that loan those players want those players back. So again, they've got to be able to get a squad together that can compete in the Championship long term, stabilise, develop young players, bring those young players through, and wean themselves off the loan system, develop their own talent, and then aim for the Premier League. The issue is with that is obviously the money's in the Premier League and it's not filtering down enough. The clubs at the bottom in League One, League Two, and the non-league don't have the resources to necessarily have that youth academy, necessarily have you know, the ability to go up. They get stuck in a league and fester there, and they don't have enough of a fan base to grow, etc., etc. So there's issues with the money in the game. UFC, I'm not a fan of UFC anymore. I had a brief casual interest in it. I do casually watch it. I'm not a hardcore fan. Yes, there are rumours in the pipeline that there is, you know, that Habib will be fighting Mayweather. It will just be a farce like the previous one between McGregor and Mayweather was. I think it completely devalues MMA in general. I think it makes a mockery of both boxing and MMA. And UFC, I've looked at UFC a little bit, and I think they're actually damaging their brand more than they're growing it. I think they're going for the short-term cash rather than the long-term stability and growth. I think Dana White, I think this has gone far beyond his management level and his expertise, because he never went to university, he went to high school. So, you know, I think Dana White, I think this is well past his level now. I think, yes, they are much bigger than other MMA promotions, and of which there are a lot more than I thought. Bellator is their nearest rival in promotion size, and they're really small compared to UFC. UFC can attract the better fighters, the bigger fighters. I think UFC is damaging itself with the antics outside the octagon by fighters, in the octagon by fighters, and in the aftermath of press conferences, some of the things said and done. If you or me were to do that, we are going out of prison for assault, criminal damage, attempted murder. You know, we're getting done. There's only so far I think UFC can go before it starts becoming too big to handle for the structures in place. And if Mayweather wants to have another money grab, because he will, Habib will be the second richest loser in history after McGregor. Simple. I do think there has to come a point where enough is enough. It's becoming a circus. It's becoming stupid. Dana White has come out and said he wants to get boxers under the UFC promotion banner and become a boxing promoter using the UFC as part of that. That'll be interesting. But both MMA and boxing have issues right now as sports. Steroid abuse is rampant and under-reported. But fighters are coming out and saying, yeah, look, yeah, this is going on. Drugs testing isn't uniform. It's just up in the air. There is no strict. There's so many different boxing promotions and belts. You've got WBO. You've got, you know, World Boxing Federation, WBF. You've got about 6 different belts for World Heavyweight Champion. There needs to be a single boxing promotion. It's just a mess. Thoughts on Portsmouth? Back in the day, I used to go to Portsmouth games at Fratton Park, and this is before they were bankrupt. I think Portsmouth are on the long road back to recovery. What happened to Portsmouth in the years following their FA Cup win is criminal, and there is criminal elements involved in this. There is fraud, there is corruption. Interesting how Milan Mandaric, every club he touches goes into administration, and then he's investigated for tax fraud. Very interesting with Milan Mandaric. It's called being a crook. Harry Redknapp having a secret bank account named after one of his favourite dogs. Again, stench of dodginess. Probably why I didn't get the England job in the end. What happened to Portsmouth was criminal. They're not the only club to have financial issues, but I think what happened with Portsmouth was criminal intent there. There was definite fraud, there was definite criminality, and where did all their prize money go for getting into Europe and then winning the FA Cup? There's exactly the same amount of money missing from their bank account, so there was definite dodgy goings on at Portsmouth. There is no two ways about that. There was definite corruption going on at Portsmouth Football Club behind the scenes by Milan Mandaric and some of the other ownership people in place, and Harry Redknapp acquiesced with that. That's my personal view on it. My personal view. Portsmouth are on the long road back to recovery. Will they get back to the Premier League? No, probably not. But they are doing well where they are, but it's a long road back, and it's whether they can be competitive in each league they get to. So if they do get promoted to the Championship, can they survive in the Championship? If they get through the Championship, can they survive in the Premier League? That's another question, is the longevity and the long-term plan that Portsmouth have, because off the field, not been great. But when Portsmouth collapsed, Rangers collapsed off the field as well, and that's another crucial thing. There was a lot going on 10, 15 years ago in football. I think it started with Leeds. Leeds, when they went down to the Championship, it opened up a can of worms that hasn't been fully looked at, and now it's become known that the tax authorities and the police are looking at a lot of players and clubs for tax dodge and other corruption claims. None have been named yet, but that's come out in the press the last few days, that there is investigations now ongoing into multiple players, agents, managers and clubs to do with tax affairs and money going missing and a variety of things on that front. So something's opened up a can of worms and they're looking into it. Again, Portsmouth, the last decade has been chaotic for Portsmouth, off the field and on the field. It is going to be a long journey back for the club. If they do get back to the Premier League, I think that'll be an achievement in itself. But the off-field issues, there's still a lot to discuss with what happened with Portsmouth off the field 10 years ago with Milan Mandaric. There's a lot, that has been buried under the carpet. There was some criminality there. People aren't stupid. It seems to be that the people in power in football seem to think fans are fickle and stupid, and we're not. And the way the Wembley deal went about, if you're undervaluing the stadium by at least half its value, it should not be sold. I don't give a toss if the FA say it's going to go into grassroots football. How many of those FA directors and board members will get nice fat bonuses? Blackpool is regularly known for having a half-empty stadium. The battle between the fans and the owners has now reached a point where fans are deliberately staying away to, in the short term, harm the club so the Oystons sell it. And hopefully the Oyston family will not be owning Blackpool for much longer, because they've done their best to destroy that club. And there's criminality there. I will say this: I don't play FIFA, so to ask me who you should get for your FIFA team, you're asking the wrong person. I don't play the FIFA games. I don't play Footy Manager anymore. It's just not my cup of tea. But again, Jonathan Thurston is an interesting character. Very interesting character. He only won the grand final, I think, once as a player with Queensland. Not with Queensland, with North Queensland Cowboys. He obviously started out at Canterbury. Was a bit of a wild youth. Settled down, got into obviously that leadership role at the Cowboys. He's an interesting character. I think he's one of the best 5/8 to play the game ever. But he was, for a time, playing for a North Queensland Cowboys side that were crap and couldn't win. So if you were to compare him to a Cooper Cronk, I think Cooper Cronk has won more as a player and has had that winning vibe. I mean, he didn't really get enough of a chance at Canterbury. I think Canterbury made a mistake in not signing him long term and keeping him long term and letting him go to Queensland. I think when he went to North Queensland, that team wasn't great for a long periods. That team was terrible for lengthy periods of time. But the NRL insisted having another team in Queensland. They decided to put it up in Townsville in the tropics. So when it rains there, it pisses down, and when it's hot there, it's hot there. But he's had a solid career. You got to look at his totals. He's had a pretty good career. He is a future immortal. There is no doubt on that. and he helped turn that North Queensland Cowboys team into the team it is now, a more competitive team, a team that regularly competes at the top end, and it has grown the NRL in Queensland. You know, it has grown it in North Queensland in a more rural region, a region with less money, less disposable income, smaller towns and cities. He has helped grow the sport there. I'm not sure if he, I'm not sure if Canterbury, where the Canterbury Bulldogs would have been if they kept Thurston. That's the question. Is would he have had the same career if he had stayed at Canterbury? And that's hindsight. But no, he's a good player, without a doubt. Obviously, he's had a few injuries in recent seasons, which meant he's not played every game that he could have. State of Origin's taken it out of him. I think the amount of games played has taken it out of him, and injuries are starting to creep in into now. But he's still an outstanding player. But where would Australian Rugby League be on the international side without Jonathan Thurston? Where would the Queensland State of Origin side be without Jonathan Thurston? He was crucial to a lot of what Australia and Queensland did as well. So it doesn't matter what club he really plays for the state and country. He was crucial in dominating his position and in dominating winning teams. You take him out, they don't look as good. Sunderland, that's another interesting club. Can they get back in the Championship and then back in the Premier League? I don't think they want to stay in League One for too long. Same with Blackburn. We didn't stay in League One. We only stayed in League One for a season. Any team that's been in the Premier League for a lengthy period of time, or the Championship, doesn't want to stay in League One for more than a season. They want to get straight back up. Otherwise, the slippery slope is League Two, and then we know what happens after League Two, don't we? It's called the National League. We don't want that. Sunderland have obviously had off-field issues for quite some time. Badly run club again. There has to be a moment and a point where the FA finally starts listening to the fans more and taking action to stop the mismanagement of these teams taking place. There's far too much, how do I put it, unregulated in a sense when it comes to the ownership and where the money comes from or doesn't come from. And it's concerning. But I will say this, people ask my opinion on football, and I'm very, as each day and week passes, I watch football less and less, and I'm turning off more and more. The way that the sport worldwide, not just in this country, is being governed is not right. There's issues with tax avoidance, corruption, match fixing, the players being overpaid. Agents' fees is a big talking point. I think football is at a crisis point. I think there's too much money in the game now, far too much money in the game now. I think it's got overly commercial, and the mainstream fan is what actually makes the sport tick. And I think they're not being listened to, their voice is not being heard, and people are falling out of love with the sport that they used to love. But sport as a whole is reaching a crucial point now. It is. There's no two ways about it. It's reaching a crossroads. Professional sport is, and amateur sport, and anything in between. There is a point where it's reaching a crucial crossroads, and that's interesting. We've seen over the last week the online abuse that Karen Carney faced online, and the threats, and this is nothing new. But with social media as well, there is an issue there, and I could discuss social media on the other channel. I think Billy Slay, I think his shoulder injury was going to become more problematic. The last 3 years, he's had a lot of issues with his shoulders. I think, obviously, you've got to think of post-retirement, what is the damage done to the body in such a physical sport, which is an issue that gets overlooked, is when players retire from contact sport, what they do when they retire. And it gets raised a lot, and I think Billy Slay, I think, retired at the right time. Obviously, he wanted to win that grand final, but should he have played in the grand final, there was rumours he should have been suspended for a shoulder charge, ironically. Also, he hasn't gone without controversy. Obviously, the salary cap scandal at Melbourne with the hidden secret contracts. Some people haven't forgotten that. I certainly haven't. But I do think if you have a shoulder injury, I mean, I'm currently suffering with a shoulder problem right now, and I can tell you now, I injured my shoulder 2 years ago at a motorcycle accident. It's healed and then re-aggravated itself, and it turns out that I have a nerve damage in my neck and in my spinal cord. So not only have I got internal damage with my shoulder, I've got nerve damage as well, which wasn't diagnosed at the time. So a shoulder injury, and mine isn't sport related, but a shoulder injury, it can be recurring. You could get it the slightest and then you are in trouble. I think it was right for him to retire in the sense that post-career, he's got to look after his body, he's got a young family. Quality of life is important. I did see your Twitter post, and that is interesting. But the shoulder charge, I mean, again, because I didn't have enough access to the NRL, I read about it. Again, the consistency when it comes to disciplining players, not just in rugby league, but in a lot of sports, is being roundly criticised over recent years, especially when it's a star player who's committed an offence. That suddenly becomes a hot topic. So it seems to be one rule for one player, one rule for another, depending on their level of standing in the game. It's been a hot topic, it's a hot potato. Obviously, Melbourne got battered, which is good, because I can't stand Little Queensland. I call them Little Queensland because they basically got half the Australian side was playing for Melbourne as well at one point, and Queensland, basically, the state of origin team was based the Melbourne Storm. The criticism I have of the Melbourne Storm is one of the reasons why they're there is to develop local talent in the state of Victoria. How many players actually are born in the state of Victoria playing in the NRL? That would be a question that I put out. Southampton Newcastle on Saturday. That is a crucial game for both clubs. I think if Southampton win that, Newcastle are in serious trouble. Newcastle need something from the game, otherwise they risk being left adrift at the bottom of the table, especially because Huddersfield are showing a bit of fight and a bit of steel about them. Whether the matter of time when Huddersfield get a win or two. If that happens and Newcastle haven't got that win, Newcastle are in deep trouble. And when I did my predictions a month ago on where I felt teams would finish, I was criticised by some people on this live stream that I had Newcastle too low in the table. I stick by that. I stick by my prediction. And I will say this, I can see my prediction video being completely wrong and the teams finishing in different positions. That's why I don't normally do them. But I was hazarding a guess. I just went on a gut feeling, and I feel Newcastle will go down. The fact that Cardiff now have a win and they don't is worrying. And we're at the end of October. The clocks go back this weekend. You know, not to have a win in the season at this point, deeply troubling. Deeply troubling. We haven't even got to the FA Cup third round yet, and they haven't got a game. And then, ever the optimist as a Newcastle fan, I do think something needs there quickly. I don't know if Rafa Benitez has any faith in Mike Ashley and the promises that Mike Ashley gives him for transfer funds. I'm not even sure if Rafa Benitez has fully got a full handle on transfer policy, which is another criticism that comes out about Mike Ashley's transfer policy. And how much say a manager has on the players he can scout and try and sign. Also, what players will be wanting to go to a relegation and battled club? That's another thing. There is problems at Newcastle. I think Mike Ashley should have sold the club to Amanda Staveley. I really do. I think that sale should have gone ahead. Whether she was the right person to lead the club forward is another thing. So I think Mike Ashley wants to sell that club. But if they get relegated, the value of the club disappears. It depreciates. It's like a BMW. You buy a brand new BMW, and within, as soon as you turn the key, £5,000 come off the sale price because he turned it on. That is the issue with Newcastle now. Where they finished last year, around 300 to 350 million was a fair valuation, which basically means since Mike Ashley has bought the club has halved in value. That is the disturbing thing. Since Mike Ashley has owned that team, the value of the club has dropped season upon season, and if they get relegated this season and he wants to sell, he's going to get a lot less than what he wants. They were once the second richest club in English football after Man United, at the peak of their powers in the 90s. It's not the case now. It's not the case now. They're one of the have-nots now in the Premier League, and I think Mike Ashley is doing more to harm Newcastle United than grow Newcastle United. And I think Rafa Benitez rightly has got concerns about his future as manager, but at the same time in developing that squad, growing that squad, and improving that squad, I don't think he's been given the tools to do so. And it also is worrying that the youth development system at Newcastle is not producing the players it was 10, 15 years ago. So Mike Ashley is responsible for that. He is. When you got players like ex-players like Peter Beardsley in the coaching role, who've been done for racism and bullying, and there's criticisms about the coaching setup in the youth level, it says there's an issue there. And I don't know how long this can continue. I wouldn't be surprised if Benitez just says I've had enough, I'm walking away, and I don't think he wants to do that. I think Benitez really wants to see this through to the end of his contract. I think he really wants to keep this team going, and I think the fans are more behind Benitez. I think they're anti-Ashley now. I think it's reaching a point where, you know, people say fan protests don't make a change. When that stadium is empty and no one's going to a Newcastle game, that's when the change will happen. And unfortunately, the Newcastle fans are too loyal to the club. There needs to be a massive fan boycott of that club for a game. Because I say this, empty stadiums look really, really crap for TV. They do. They really do. And until the Toon Army starts staying away in droves, no change will happen. None. None. And that's the problem. And that's the issue I see. And I don't see it changing while Mike Ashley is still the owner. There has to be more pressure put upon him. And unfortunately, the fans are too loyal. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but in this case it is. I think the Toon Army needs to mass boycott St James's Park for a home game. And if that means this weekend against Southampton, you mass boycott, so be it. But the problem is you also travel well on away games as well, so there needs to be voting with feet and pockets and not giving Mike Ashley any more money. Because St James's Park regularly sells out, and that's another issue, is they regularly sell out that stadium. And have done for years. So to really get change is from within, and it starts with the fans. If the fans really give it a protest, and I mean really give it a go, that does put pressure on Newcastle to look at themselves and go, are we going in the right direction? You've got the fan base, you've got, you know, the interest. You've got a world-class stadium for size. Admittedly, it needs a bit of work doing to it, but you've got a big stadium there that, you know, you could invest in and grow. You've got a whole city behind you, big metropolitan area in Newcastle. You're the biggest club in the North East. Your local rivals, Sunderland, struggling, lower league. Hartlepool, out of the Football League. Hull, struggling in the Championship. Middlesbrough. So your near rivals, your local rivals aren't doing as well, but you're at the Premier League. And this is another issue, is the North East as a whole has their football clubs badly run. The fans really badly let down. And it's not the wealthiest area in the world, let's not kid ourselves. The North East isn't the wealthiest part of the country. It's not the wealthiest part of Europe. I think fans have been taken for a ride for too long. And this is, and people say fan protests don't really do much. The day that every single Premier League stadium doesn't sell out on a Premier League weekend is the day change is happening. And I can see it happening. The more empty seats that we have, the more shit it looks for TV. The more change is likely to happen if because here's the thing, this is what's funny. The current TV deal and the new one means that the big clubs can let us in for free. They don't rely on ticket receipts anymore to make a profit, and even if they do, it's so minor. They could charge us a fiver and let us in, yet they continue to rip us off at the turnstiles for home games and away game travel. They continue to rip us off. So vote with your feet. They want to suck up the TV deal money, and the domestic TV deal isn't as good this time round. So there is a change coming. BT Sport had the desired effect. If anything, it's damaged the game more because it's a pile of crap. Sky Sports and Sky have just been bought by Comcast, so their future is going to be different. So the TV deal is going to be different in years to come. And Amazon want to get involved. Grubby company that doesn't pay its tax. And free-to-air TV starting to nick back rugby league, rugby union, other bits and pieces. It's snapping at the heels, taking up bits and pieces, and then fighting back slowly. There's going to be a perfect storm when it comes to TV deal next time round. And I don't think football as a sport is well equipped to deal with the changes. Not well equipped at all. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Right, any more questions? Hull are badly run. I don't think it's the players' fault. I don't think it's the fans' fault. It is the owners. Plain and simple. It's the ownership. Again, ownership harming. Foreign owners, unscrupulous. British owners, unscrupulous. You've got to look what happened to Rangers. So multiple clubs have been mismanaged off the field, crooked dealings going on, and there has to come a point where, okay, you can protest inside the stadium, fuck it, stay away from the stadium. The more empty seats you have, the worse it looks for TV. And TV is where football makes its money now. And if you're selling a product which looks crap, doesn't look good, it's a bad advert, starts hitting them in the pockets. I think the oversaturation of TV is actually harming the game. And I remember watching the FA Cup last year. Swansea got a lot of TV time replay against Notts County. You would think Swansea, they were putting up £10 a ticket, quarter-filled stadium, so fans were staying away, partly because the team were crap last season, but televised game, middle of winter, you can watch it at home. Plain and simple, televised game you can watch at home rather than at the stadium. Says it all. The fact that Notts County brought, so I mean West Brom. I think they've complained a lot. Some clubs have actually complained more than others about the amount of televised games they're getting compared to other rivals. There is a division between the haves and have-nots, and some of the bigger clubs, the Big Six, want a monopoly on the TV money, and other clubs aren't happy with that. There's going to be a perfect storm. There is going to be a division within the league, a league within a league, like we used to have. The haves and have-nots. It's getting to the point now where football has a lot of problems, and they're starting to all surface at the same time, and they're not really putting out these fires. They're putting out one fire, two more fires spread somewhere else. And the TV deal is a massive sticking point with fans because they feel they could be let in for free. The research has been done and it's been proven we, could be let in for free or very, very cheap, and the ticket price that we're being presented with and the food and drink prices at stadiums doesn't warrant that. And the quality level isn't actually as good as people as is claimed by some. The actual regular quality level in the Premier League is actually pretty crap. The fact that Man City can't draw in the Champions League as well is embarrassing. And Guardiola going and trying to get behind the team, guys. Manchester's not the richest city in the world. I don't think he's realised that. Just because the club's got a lot of money doesn't mean the fans do. And a lot of City fans are glory hunters anyway. And I've had a battle on here with a Man City glory hunter. I told him, "Are you aware of the history of the club pre-2007?" And he said he didn't care. So that's another issue: is these plastic fans that just tag along because the club's winning. The fashionable, it's fashionable to wear a Man City jersey. It's man, I can't stand it. A lot of Man City fans haven't been to a game pre-2007 before Sheikh Mansour. A lot of them haven't been to the old main road. A lot of them don't know about the fact they ended up in the third tier of English football at one point? 30 odd years without a trophy. A lot of Man City fans don't remember all those days. A lot of younger fans don't realise that, before the Premier League was started, we had the old Division 1. And we didn't have Sky Sports. A lot of there's a big disconnect between the modern fan and the traditional fan, and it's all part of crap. But there we go. That's my rant about football and the TV rights and certain fans, not being as. But you see, that's the difference between a hardcore fan that's brought up in a city where, regardless of what league the team plays in, the fans get behind the team because it's a community thing. It's a big thing in Newcastle that I do know. I've got a lot of friends from the northeast. Football clubs in the northeast, they are the town thing. Everyone. You don't support that club? Weird. Newcastle is just one of those clubs where the fan base is the most loyal fan base I think you'll ever find. There's not many glory hunters at Newcastle because they haven't won a trophy for over 50 odd, 60 odd years. And that's saying something, and that's me being kind. But look how many. The club hasn't been successful for a long time in the sense of winning silverware, but look how many consecutive games are sold out or near sellouts. It says a lot. The day Newcastle United fans decide to boycott a game, the shit has hit the fan and something's gone seriously wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if these fan protests, you've got to put, loyalties aside and say, right, we want change with our football club. We want change with how this is run and going forward and a long-term, plan. Because ultimately, all those Newcastle players, they do ultimately want to win the Premier League, surely. They obviously want to win the FA Cup, League Cup, whatever trophy they're going for. They obviously want to win something. They don't want to be the whipping boys. But sadly, I can see Newcastle finishing last. If things continue, I can see Newcastle finishing last. But it is what it is. But anyway, any more questions coming? Because I'm about to end now. So if you've got any more questions, feel free to ask away. And I'll do my best to quickly answer them because I want to get a bite to eat. I think it's time for a snack. So if anyone's got any more questions, feel free to ask them now before I end the stream. Any more questions at all? I felt we've discussed a lot of topics. We haven't even got onto the cricket corruption scandal that's going on right now. I can go into that if you really want, but I'm not sure there's many cricket fans on the stream this evening to warrant doing that. But that's another hot potato at the moment is the corruption allegations by Al Jazeera in cricket. The thing is, League One, I don't know. Plain and simple, I don't know. It's a very unpredictable league to predict who's going to finish where. It just is. I could not honestly tell you any predictions, really. I couldn't, and that's an honest opinion. I really couldn't tell you. It's such an unpredictable league. It's an interesting league to watch if you catch the odd highlight or catch the old cup game, but it doesn't get the coverage it deserves. So I don't really have enough first-hand knowledge of League One. I followed it obviously last year because Blackburn were in League One and obviously got promoted, but at the same time I didn't follow any other team apart from my club, so I can't really comment on who I think is going to be first. I could hazard a guess at those that are in the places now will be those clubs that will be competing to get into the Championship. There may be a club that has a late run in the season to get into playoff places. So I'll have to do a bit of research on League One and look at what clubs are where now. But I think it all depends on where we are at the end of the transfer window, what clubs are where, and the Christmas period will be crucial. So Portsmouth may be first now, and Peterborough may be second now. Come New Year's Day, they could have plummeted down the table. You've just got to look at Leeds in the Championship. They've gone on a bit of a sticky patch. They've got 9 points out of 24. They're not suddenly doing as well as they were in August and September. So, cautionary tale. Leeds have slipped back. Other teams have gone ahead of them now. It's very congested at the top of the Championship. The same could be said for League One. It takes a couple of bad results, and a first place Portsmouth could suddenly be 5th, 6th, 7th within the space of a couple of weeks. So I honestly couldn't tell you who would be promoted from League One to the Championship. I really couldn't. That is something that around mid-season you get a better idea, but even then it's a very unpredictable league. A club could go on a long, nice run and sneak up on opposition teams, get into the playoffs or get into the automatic places after going on a lengthy run. So we'll see. But here's the thing, if Sunderland get promoted and Newcastle get relegated, you have the North East Derby again, the Tyne Wear Derby, which I think is one of the best derbies in football. Regardless of what league the teams are in, that is one of the most heated but best derbies in football for atmosphere. I have no doubt on that. I really do. I have no doubt on that at all. But unfortunately, where the clubs are at league-wise and positioning those leagues as well, the North East need... the FA needs to get a grip of football in this country, but it's proven itself time and time again that it's not up to scratch for governing the game. The FA is regularly failing football clubs, football fans and the sport in this country. So that's my view on the FA. I could slag off the FA all day long and be happy doing it. The FA needs structural reform and quickly, and unfortunately it's just not happening. Again, Newcastle are in that position now where if they sack Benitez now, you've got a month, 2 months till the transfer window opens, so there's no movement on players. So whoever comes in is going to have 2 months of scratching his head going, how can I get these players to play better? I think it comes down to Mike Ashley, plain and simple. The lack of investment in the transfer market in the summer, the lack of certainty of if he was going to own the club over the last year hasn't helped. But his position, how secure is it? I don't think that's helped. Some of the Newcastle players at the end of last year, like John Joe Shelby, getting snubbed by England, I think that's affected their confidence. There's a variety of issues that could be at play at Newcastle. Plain and simple. I'm not trying to discredit how Newcastle fans feel, but there are issues with Newcastle. Mike Ashley is part of the problem, not the solution, and I've been critical of Mike Ashley for forever. There is one of my videos where I do call him the biggest C word this country's ever produced. I really do. I have not hidden my secret of my dislike of Mike Ashley. And to find people who dislike him more than I do, you have to go to Newcastle apparently. But no, I don't like Mike Ashley. I don't like the way he runs his companies. I don't like the way he's dealt with Newcastle over the last 11 years. He's done a shocking job of owning that football club. Of that I have no doubt. It's been a sorry state of affairs at Newcastle since he bought that club. The future for Newcastle, we have to see if they can get a win against Southampton. If they can get that win against Southampton, then wheels start turning and motion can look upwards. But if they don't, then they do risk getting isolated at the bottom of the table, and we could see a Derby County record of lowest points total in a season. We really could see that, and I thought that record would never go. But that is a risk. that Newcastle face. If they can't score enough goals, which is one problem, and they can't keep goals out the other end, which is another problem, they do risk a Derby County type season with 11 points or less. They've only got 2 so far. Even Derby County in that season were not as bad as this, so that says where they're at. And ironically, that was the first season they were run by Mike Ashley. Rio Ferdinand, I can't stand him as a football pundit. I really can't. As a player, he was a good player. Obviously, there was the drugs test controversy where he missed a couple of drugs tests. So there was accusations that if he wasn't doping, he was smoking the reefer or doing a line of powder to miss those drug tests. But since that, his wife's passed away. He's tried to go down a boxing career, tried to do a Freddie Flintoff and get into boxing, and that didn't go his way. He's done some TV work, documentaries. He looked at before the World Cup in Brazil. He did some documentaries about the street crime, the social aspects of it all. But as a football pundit, yeah, I don't know. I'm not keen on Mr. Ferdinand as a football pundit, but that's my personal opinion. Newcastle fans, for the most part, are against Mike Ashley now. I think they don't like his ownership of the club. The fact there's constant rumours he's going to sell, he's going to sell, he's going to sell. Those deals keep collapsing. It's a toxic situation up in Newcastle. It really is. But as someone who, I'm not a Newcastle fan, so my opinion is more subjective and outside the box. I don't have that necessarily that passionate, behind my views. But as a Blackburn fan, we've been down the same boat with dodgy owners and relegations and falling out of the Premier League, and yeah, we're doing well in the Championship. We lost last night 3-1, but we are doing reasonably well in the Championship for a newly promoted side. We are in the playoff hunt. But as a Blackburn fan who knows what bad ownership does to a club, I do worry for Newcastle long term. I really do. I don't know how long it can continue. I really don't, because if they do get relegated, what happens in the Championship? Do those players suddenly go, we don't want to stay? Or does Mike Ashley and the backroom staff, have a sit down with management and say, right, we've got to get these players on board to get back like we did the last 2 times, because they've been relegated twice under Mike Ashley, and then he spends money and then they get relegated again. Yeah, I think, and I will finish on this, the Amanda Staveley saga, as I will call it that, because I did follow that from beginning to end, and to be fair, it just stopped. It didn't go, the deal's now off like with the Wembley sale. It just suddenly disappeared from the news. Mike Ashley wanted to force the sale through very, very quickly, and she wanted to take her time and make sure she had, everything in order to make sure it was a proper sale, and they could then look at Rafa Benitez's future and the club going forward. But Mike Ashley was trying to rush the sale through, like he couldn't be rid of the club quick enough. His ownership has been erratic, but at the same time, there's also this French football tax investigation where Newcastle United were implicated in the Demba Ba transfer, and they got raided, and Mike Ashley, some of his associates, got arrested and investigated. And that hasn't gone away either, because that's still an ongoing investigation, so that could come back to haunt Newcastle down the line as well. Same with West Ham and Chelsea. So when they had Demba Ba, when you guys had Demba Ba, there was some dodgy dealings about that, and it's to do with tax avoidance, corruption, some dodgy dealings with third-party payments, and some dodgy dealings in the French league and in the British leagues as well. So that came out before he put the club up for sale, before Amanda Staveley's bid. She then bids on the club. She puts an informal bid, so it's like, I'm interested, and then on the table, here's my legal paperwork, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm offering for you're offering to sale, here's my initial offer, let's have some negotiations. And they obviously broke down at some point. She was sitting at a lot of games with Mike Ashley, they were having meetings, and then suddenly it stopped. It just disappeared. Whether that bid's still in the pipeline and there's still interest from Amanda Staveley and her group, we shall see. but I do hope Mike Ashley sells up and we get a responsible owner in, an owner who actually gives a toss about the fans, and taking the club forward. Former Chelsea Man United manager, God, there's been a few of them. The fact that, it's not the first time he's put the club up for sale, or had the club valued for potential sale, is worrying. That he was in it for a quick buck to begin with. He's now got stuck with something he can't flog. I think he is. I'm going to leave on this. I think Mike Ashley is damaging the Newcastle United brand. Because when I was a kid, now bearing in mind I'm a good 11, nearly 12 years older than you. I'm nearly 30. When I was a kid, Newcastle were one of the biggest clubs, in the English Premier League. They nearly won the Premier League in '96. They were in the top 4 regularly at the time. They were pushing European. They were getting European football. And then post 2000, that disappeared. That fell off a cliff. But in the 90s, they were a wealthy club. They were worth more in the 90s than they are now. So if you put that in real terms, they were worth a lot more than they are now. Since Mike Ashley has bought the club, their value has decreased. He is damaging Newcastle United financially. Long term, I don't see him interested. He's obviously got bored of it. He wanted it as a short-term investment to make a quick buck. It hasn't worked out that way. He's overspent whilst there, his own personal pocket. He hasn't got the return he wants. The club hasn't got the success the fans were expecting from a new owner coming in. They got close in the 90s, and that was good for the fans then. They didn't kick on. Mike Ashley's come in, and they got relegated twice. Plain and simple. I don't know what else to tell you. You were 7 years old when Mike Ashley bought the club. Yeah, I can remember when Newcastle were actually a really good side in the 90s. Really good side, and it's just not the case now. They have been badly run by Mike Ashley since he bought the club. Plain and simple. Since he bought the club, the value of the club has decreased. He's obviously overvaluing it. The potential buyers, like Amanda Stabley, are giving him an offer, saying take it or leave it, and he said, "No, it's on enough." Well, they've gone and independently, when they make an offer, they would have assessed how much the club is actually worth, and they've gone, yeah, no. So I don't see him with many options left on the table. I think he's going to have to sell. But there we go. I'm going to leave that there. Thank you very much for your questions. I don't want to go on too much about Newcastle because we'll be here all night, and I will. Well, I'm heavily critical of Newcastle United under Mike Ashley. I really am. I have nothing but criticism for Mike Ashley. He's not my favourite cup of tea, if I'm honest. I'd much rather have some brutal things shoved in me than give Mike Ashley more of my bloody money. But the reason why I use Sports Direct is it is cheap. I don't care if the quality isn't there. If I need a coat, if I need a t-shirt, I will go Sports Direct. It's cheap than JD Sports, obviously, but I might reconsider that now. I haven't been, so I have actually started to boycott his Sports Direct. I used to go in there if I needed to, any sports gear. It's quick, it's cheap, it's there. Now I'd rather pay that little bit more, bit extra quality from the sports gear now on my feeler top. I got this from JD Sports, not Sports Direct, so that says something about where I see his company now. Sorry, I'm just not going to give him any more money. And that's what I think Newcastle fans need to do. If there's a Sports Direct in Newcastle, boycott it. If there's a Sports Direct in an out-of-town shopping centre in the northeast, boycott. Simple. You stay away from his stall, and then you start staying away from the stadium, and then you'll feel it in the pocket. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching and contributing. You've been great, guys, and I'll have some more hopefully videos for you soon. Hopefully the laptop gets sorted out Friday, and we'll go from there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.